options for MCAS and histamine intolerance. And I know this topic, like the topic of protein, is really popular in the wellness sphere right now and can be really tricky to navigate on your own. But today we hope to open your eyes to why protein is important for healing and how to handle it if you have histamine intolerance or MCAS. So I'll be joined today by lead practitioner Kimberly Quirk, as well as our special guests, Sean Grace and Courtney Smyski from Northstar Bison. And before I bring them up, we'll just do our quick disclaimers. This presentation is for informational and educational purposes. It is not meant to treat, diagnose, cure, or prevent illness. Be sure to discuss any health recommendations with your healthcare provider. And just a reminder that some of the links shared during this presentation or on our website are affiliate links, which means Mast Cell 360 may take a very small commission if you purchase through our links. We only recommend products that we love and use personally or use in the Mast 360 clinic. So if you are joining us live, feel free to drop in the comments where you're tuning in from. Have you purchased from Northstar Bison before? We would love to know those things about you and our community. Okay, so what are we going to be talking about today? We are going to be discussing what are proteins and amino acids, what is the importance of protein in the diet, and give you some ideas for meals, because I know that that is one of the hardest things, especially in this healing community where maybe you have to avoid things like eggs for breakfast, and all of a sudden breakfast becomes this huge nuisance, right? We'll be talking about how to get the most out of your protein and where to source low histamine meats. And if we have time, as always, we'll do a live Q&A. Please only ask your question one time and keep it on the topic of today's show. So protein, low histamine meats, how to prepare meats, things along those lines. And please understand that we are unable to answer in-depth personal health questions. So let me bring up our guests. We have Sean and Courtney from Northstar Bison, as well as Kimberly. Sean is a passionate regenerative rancher and the co-owner of Northstar Bison, which is a family-run company dedicated to providing truly wild, nutrient-dense meats raised with integrity. He grew up on his family's farm where he developed a deep research for nature's design and a commitment to humane, sustainable food systems. Through Northstar Bison, he champions the connection between soil health, animal welfare, and human vitality, making him a trusted voice in clean, healing nutrition for those with complex needs. And he's joined today by Courtney, who is the office manager at Northstar Bison, where she brings passion and purpose to her work every day. She's deeply committed to Northstar's core values and takes great joy in building authentic relationships with customers, serving them the world's most wholesome food. She's a proud wife and mother of 3 young girls, and she blends heart, hospitality, and integrity into everything she does, both at home and at Northstar. Thank you guys so much for being here with us today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, we appreciate this.
Yeah, so we're so glad to have you. Can you share with our community a little bit about how Northstar Bison came to be and what inspired your mission around clean regenerative food?
Yeah, absolutely. So my parents started this business back in 1994 as kind of a dream of my dad's, I guess, to own bison, but that wasn't necessarily like where they ended today or where we are today wasn't the goal. They had a background in health and fitness and supplements and understood a lot of the human health needs and requirements and things like that in the food system. They went off into what they thought was a different direction of ranching and found out quickly that bison was just this extremely incredible protein that was largely missing in the modern diet. And so started to market back to a lot of those relationships that they had had in the past. Athletes and people that were looking for really nutrient dense meat, as well as people that had health complications and things like that. And that's kind of where it has continued to go, I guess. And as we've grown, that's really been our core focus, is now producing that product better today than we had even in the beginning. But the more, I guess, that you research, the best meat on the planet is really raised in a way that what is now called regenerative. Back then, 30 years ago, it wasn't considered, that wasn't a trendy term or anything like that. It's just literally how it used to function prior to man kind of breaking that cycle, and what is now modern farming, which is like confinement and things like that, continuous grazing. And so that's the kind of really, really fast version of the origins of the company, I guess, but never was set out to be what it is today. It was just set out to kind of fulfill a dream, but then also recognizing the passions that they had prior, and this connection of this dream to be on a ranch and raising animals and interacting with the land and things like that. And so that's now this culmination of what Northstar has become today, and the processing aspect of taking that animal off of the land and preserving that through the harvest and the cutting and the packaging and the shipment to the end consumer was a really, really critical piece for us to be able to control the quality of that product to the end consumer. And in the beginning, of course, we had to farm that out and get additional processors in the mix, and it was fumbled almost every time. And so we ended up about 20 years ago, I guess, purchasing our first processing plant. And so we're vertically integrated now, and can serve or control the process from beginning to end, which makes us extremely unique. But that's a fast version, I guess.
Yeah, I feel like we always talk about like know your farmer, and so like this is an opportunity for people to know that you are the farmer, but you're also the processor. So like it's like you just said, from start to finish, you know what's happening to that meat, whereas a farmer might not necessarily know as soon as it goes to processing and then to market. So it is a really unique system that you guys have.
Yeah, most of the time it's very segmented. You have the producer. A lot of times the producer, even in the industry, isn't necessarily even raising the own feed for the animals that they're finishing either. So it's typically very, very segmented and broken up, and there's lots of transitions along the way. And the model that we have to be able to better serve the end consumer has been to literally control the process from beginning to end. That does make us extremely unique. And there's possibly a handful in the country or in the continent, I guess, that have the same business model as us, but it's extremely rare.
And what's nice about that too is that like community members can actually reach out to you and understand like where their food is coming from. Because I know our community, we recommend your products a lot, and there's been a rise in the number of people struggling with MCAS and histamine intolerance in recent years. And I know that you guys have seen this as well. So our community, it can be really hard to find like good low histamine options. What kind of feedback have you heard from like this histamine intolerant MCAS community?
Yeah, I feel like even in the 5 years that I've worked here, it's very obvious the rise from when I started to now. Like you said, it's definitely grown quite a bit. I feel like it does make sense too when you look at the normal American diet and food system. It's really broken. It's really hard to find deeply nourishing food. It almost just doesn't exist out there. So I feel like a lot of people too don't know that we exist or that we're out here. I feel like we're still kind of small in that area, but I feel like through word of mouth, people talking, they kind of get to know the type of food that we have, and we become like a lifeline for people. And especially me, since I am in the office, I get to talk to a lot of people. It's super powerful, the stories that we hear, in the way that we can like impact people's lives in such a positive way through food. We're very proud of being able to be a part of people's lives in that way, and serving people that way. We're super intentional about everything that we do. So it's just really nice. It makes us different. Every step that we take is built with purpose.
Yeah. Okay, we have a lot more questions for you guys. I want to invite Kimberly now to kind of give a little bit of background on like what is protein and why is it so important. So let me pull up these slides for you, Kim.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to preface it, right? A lot of times with Mast Cell, we have the histamine intolerance. We have the histamine intolerance. we usually notice it with meat. So sometimes people like instantly are like, oh, meat's not good for me, or, I don't do well with meat. And it's more, the low histamine meat. And that's the reason for us having them here today, because it's been a real resource for our clients. But let's talk about what's so important about protein. So protein is one of the 3 main macronutrients essential for our human function. So macronutrient just means your body needs larger amounts, and the other 2 are, fat and carbs. Proteins involved in the structure. So what makes up your muscles, your organs, your skin, your hair, your connective tissue. I have clients all the time, like, what's going on with my hair? What's going on? If we have some hypermobility and connectivity issues, are we eating enough protein is always a big question we ask. And then function, right? So know that protein broken down will create your enzymes that you need to detox. Your hormones, everybody's always complaining about the hormone piece. Like, my body's not thriving. My hormones aren't functioning well. Antibodies to fight things off, and neurotransmitters, huge, right? So we tend to get a lot of anxiety or imbalances there, which can be kind of twofold, right? You have the histamine piece, which can drive anxiety, but if you're also don't have the protein to create what you need to create neurotransmitters, that's an issue. Also energy. So it provides more of a steady energy versus like a carb might be like a quicker energy, and protein is more of a slow, steady burn, and helps stabilize blood sugar, and then repair. All the things that we need to do, to heal is repairing all that damaged tissue, and supporting cellular regeneration is huge. Let me do the next slide. Okay. So what are amino acids? So amino acids come from proteins. So our body, ideally, we're eating enough protein, we're digesting it well, breaking it down into amino acids. So you can think of those amino acids as your building blocks for your body. So there's 20 different kinds of amino acids, and they can be used, your body can use them in various ways. 11 are called non-essential, meaning your body can take it from other nutrients, assuming you're eating those nutrients and digesting those nutrients, I like to say too. And the other 9 are essential. They have to come from your food. And that's why protein and especially meat is like such a perfect food, because you get all 9 of those there, which you don't always get with like if you don't eat meat. So your body can't make those on your own. So it is one of the pieces we tried to really get people to be eating meat again when we've lost meat. So yeah, missing even one essential amino acid is like trying to build a house with missing pieces, right? It's just not going to work right if you don't have all the blocks to build what you need in your body. So some examples of amino acids, some of the essential ones are things like tryptophan. It supports serotonin, really important for your mood regulation. Methionine, really, really important for detox, especially methylation and cellular repair. And then there's the non-essential ones. Some examples are lysine, which helps build our gut lining or build our collagen. Cysteine, which supports glutathione production and detox. So you guys might have heard quite a bit about glutathione. It's your master antioxidant. So important for detox. And then glutamine, it fuels our immune cells and supports the intestinal barrier function. And just know, I know we have a little note here because you can have too much glutamine, which can turn to glutamate, and it really is about balancing glutamine and GABA. And sometimes we have an imbalance there. And then we had a note here. Did you know that the non-essential amino acids like cysteine and glycine may be conditionally essential, meaning that if you need more from outside sources during times of stress and illness. So, if we have mast cell, we have illness, right? So there's just a greater demand on our body, and often why it's important to get some of those outside sources and making sure you're getting as much amino acids as possible. We test in clinic amino acids and organic acids just to see where things are and figure it out, especially if somebody is not eating enough protein or not breaking it down well. So when you're healing from MCAS, your body needs a steady supply of all 20 different of those building blocks to keep your systems running really smoothly. just to support tissue repair, immune cell production, so important, your neurotransmitters we talked about, aiding in cellular regeneration, and blood sugar levels is a huge one too. And we have a note here. Did you know when you eat protein, your body breaks it down into the individual amino acids? Then you use those amino acids to build the specific proteins that your body needs. You do the next slide.
Yeah. I think that's it for our like educational.
Okay, great. Okay.
Really, did you have any questions that you wanted to ask Sean and Courtney, or I could jump back in with another one we have?
Yeah, I mean, just one question. I saw somebody already ask it.
Yeah, I'll throw it up.
It was just about elk. Yeah, elk is delicious, by the way. If you haven't tried it, it's like the best filet mignon you've ever had. So I have clients all the time, maybe in the summer or spring, be like, oh, they're out of elk. And so the question to you guys is there like a season for elk, or which, and just explain that a little bit, because
Yeah. So we do true Rocky Mountain elk. So we don't source anything from out of state, like New Zealand, which a lot of, like in America, that's what you find as labeled as elk. It's not actually true elk like what we have. So what we get is very unique. We also have pretty high like standards and pretty strict specs on it. So that kind of shrinks our pool that's available to us even more. Elk is typically harvested in the fall. And this year we do have some potential loads kind of bookmarked for fall, September, like starting September. They're kind of tentative right now, but usually fall time will be when you'll see like the most elk for us in stock. And we're really hopeful that we'll get some, 3 or 4 loads in this year. So.
And another question I get a lot to follow on that is best way to prepare elk or prepare bison. I know people are used to different cuts of meat. So I know those are lean cuts. What is like some of your favorite ways to prepare it?
Yeah, I think it does kind of depend on the cut, but like you said, it's very lean, a very lean protein, and they're both very similar. So I feel like how you would cook bison is going to be how you would cook elk. They're both similar in the way you would cook, but like a steak doesn't need long. You got to cook it medium to medium rare for it to be really good, super tender. The thing with those lean meats is if you overcook them, they can get kind of tough. So that's the trick, is just don't overcook them. Definitely enjoy it. Like I said, medium, and it comes out super tender. And like you said, very flavorful, best steak you'll ever have.
Yeah, agree.
We get a lot of comments on our elk in particular. Elk and bison are the 2 species that we field harvest, that we're allowed to be able to field harvest. That's a really unique element for not only low histamine, I guess, as far as the stress induced in the animal. Additionally, if people are hypersensitive and dealing with some histamine, like extreme histamine intolerance, bison and elk are going to be the 2 species that are going to have the most amount of success with, because of the especially reduced stress, literally zero stress at harvest. And so that also, I think, it translates over well to the eating experience too. And so we get a lot of comments, like people are like, oh, by the way, I kind of like your elk better than your bison. Like it's a bad thing or whatever, but it's definitely something we take a lot of pride in. Bison was our flagship product. We've worked really, really hard. I think I know we're the only place in the world that actually field harvest elk like we do, because it took us about almost 3 years, I guess, to be able to get the process approved to be able to do. And so we were the pioneers in that facet. So we put a lot of pride into that product and a lot of care, and jump through a lot of hoops to be able to get to do it how we do it. But yeah, elk is phenomenal, and whenever it comes in, it sells out extremely quickly because of the quality and how much people just flat out love it. So that doesn't help our in-stock issues either. But.
Right.
We once took a elk roast home on an airplane. I used to live in Flagstaff, Arizona, and my friend harvested one through hunting, and he gave us a chunk to take home for Christmas. We put it in just like a little lunch box, and it like went through the TSA scanner, and like the TSA agent like pushed the button really fast and was like, I don't know what that is. So we learned then that you take food out of your bag when you're going through TSA. But that's a great segue into the next question that somebody had asked from our audience. Kate's asking that she noticed some of your items are labeled low histamine on Northstar's website. If the label's not there, does it mean it's not appropriate for MCAS folks? So Kimberly, you may be able to chime in here a little bit, but as far as the labeling on the website, if you can give some clarity to that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I would say 80 to 90% of our website can qualify as low histamine. We had like a section on the website. We tried to put a bunch of things on there, but we couldn't put, the whole website on there. And we're still working through, I feel like, some of the labels, but for the most part, if it doesn't have the label, it still would probably be okay. Because like I said, there's only a few things we don't recommend for low histamine. And if anybody ever has questions or like wants to double check, you can always call or email into us. We're there to help answer things like that. But yeah, I would say.
What would be some things that are?
Yes. So the only things we always say to avoid are, we have some aged steaks. So top sirloin, a ribeye, and a New York strip, we do a 21-day wet age. So obviously we don't recommend those. We do have a non-aged version of those that we do specifically for low histamine. So those would be okay, but avoid the wet aged steaks. And then ground, I feel like, is always very controversial. Some people do okay because our ground meat is not like a grocery store, right? It doesn't just sit out and then we freeze it. It gets frozen. So some people with low histamine say it does work well for them. But like if a new person calls, hey, what do you suggest? We don't recommend that. So those would just be the couple of things that I would steer clear from.
Yeah.
And I guess our bone broth would be another one just because of the long cooking time on that.
And sausage products. I always forget about like the ready to eat stuff. Those I would avoid.
All right. So your fast frozen whole muscle, that's our filter, I guess. Anything that has low histamine on it is really gone through a pretty extreme filter, even for us. Now, if you take us or our processing and our processes and compare it to just the general meat industry or food industry, we're not even in the same category. Our worst, quote unquote, low histamine products are far better than what you would find in the grocery store. So it's a pretty high bar that we put that low histamine seal on those products. It's a very tight filter, and we're really, really, really confident that it's going to work for even the most sensitive. So we're very conservative about, we don't throw that term around loosely, but we do get a lot of feedback about like grinds, for instance, that people are, say they do really, really well. Even our aged steaks, we've had some people come back and just say that they do phenomenal on those. And it's the managing the cold chain and all that process really, really tightly. I think that gives us those results. We wouldn't necessarily openly recommend those, which is, the reason why we have non-aged. But really that non-aged stuff or the flash frozen things that we have I don't think they're anywhere else in the world available like the process that we do. So.
Yeah, and I like to always say that histamine's on a scale, so it depends on who you are and your histamine intolerance. But if you're not tolerating what's at the grocery store and it's making you stop meat, of course, like let's try and start with the low histamine stuff and see how you do and sort of expand from there. And then we're working in clinic, right, to kind of calm that response down and take away the triggers so that you're more balanced. But yeah, it's a little bit of both.
Yeah. Or lowering the load in other areas of your diet so that you can tolerate a little bit more on the more nutritious type foods. So that's a great question or a great segue into kind of the next thing is like breakfast is hard for people with MCAS. And I myself included, I can't eat eggs. And so I have turned to like meat for breakfast because I need that balance I need that high protein, higher fat for stability throughout the day for energy. So I don't know, this is a question for everyone on the call, but like what are some of your favorite low histamine breakfast options for protein? So I personally, on that spectrum, right, can tolerate ground meat now and can turn to like making my own hamburgers or something along those lines or get ground. I buy frozen, like you guys said, it's like the ground meat, but that's immediately frozen. It's going to have that lower histamine load than grocery store ground meat. So that's kind of, I like do like a veggie and sausage type scramble. It's my go-to favorite, but what are some other ideas that we can direct people to?
For years, for me, I did dinner leftovers, right? So I would freeze them though, even if it was the night before. You got to make sure you freeze them, and then so it was eating dinner for breakfast.
Yeah.
Or if I needed my gut to settle more, it was more fasting until lunchtime. Yeah, some combo depending on what was going on with me.
A couple of things that I know people find really that works for them that we like specifically sell. We have like a side pork, which is like an unsmoked bacon. It's very similar to bacon, but it doesn't go through any of the process. So I know we have had a lot of people with low histamine literally say, call me as soon as that's back in stock. I want first dibs. I want it. We don't have it all the time. That's kind of one of those that, because it's so popular, it sells out, but that's a really good option. I feel like you get that bacon without, like I said, all the extra cure and process and time. We have like traditional steak, and like you said, if you can tolerate it, eggs. You could do like a non-aged steak, eggs, or just a steak. I know sometimes, again, like sweet potato, but like a hash, I feel like is a really good option. You can do like a ground meat if you tolerate it, or a really good option for that is we have like round medallions, they're called. So they're like smaller, 4 ounce, so they're really easy to quick cook and cut up kind of for like a breakfast. We also have like a sirloin tip medallion, very similar, nice small cut. Those are 4 ounces. And another thought would be like a homemade low histamine bone broth. Like Sean said, our bone broth is not considered low histamine because it's got a pretty long cook time. But if you could do your own, bone broth has a lot of protein in it, and it's just like a good, nice, easy breakfast.
Yeah, I love soup for breakfast. We have a low histamine, like chicken stock on our website. So Zach or Cam behind the scenes can throw that into the comments for everyone who are looking to maybe go into that route. Okay, yeah, so let's keep moving. Can you guys tell us some of the differences? So obviously the histamine load, we answered this a little bit, but a little bit more of the difference between like the typical grocery store meats and Northstar Bison, like the conventional versus like what you guys are doing, because some people may not quite understand that, and then maybe give a brief explanation of grass finished versus grass fed versus pasture raised, like when people are going and they're looking for, you know, those lower histamine options, what do they want to look for?
Yeah, that's a loaded question. So as far as just in general, you know, going to the grocery store, knowing what we know about, you know, from sitting on this side of the screen, I guess, if you will, and getting to see what we see in the food industry and understanding how it all works and all that sort of thing, it's a scary place to be going through the grocery store with the limitations of histamine sensitivities. Knowing what the requirement is for a consumer in that position and what they need to find, it's almost impossible to find in the grocery store just because of, you know, anything that's marked fresh or kept as fresh unfrozen. The amount of time that it takes for that animal or that product to get broken down off of an animal that was slaughtered and packaged and transported and then put out for sale is 3 weeks would be really fast, and that's forever. I mean, that was 3 weeks of production. You know, for us, that would have been, you know, turned over 3 times, or, you know, cut and packaged and froze, cut, packaged, froze. You know, so that's 3 to 6 weeks essentially is what you're looking at for standard age of fresh products in the grocery store. The frozen stuff, oftentimes, because there's a premium on fresh, the perception of fresh, meaning that it's not old, is really attractive for, and so you can get a little bit of a premium, the convenience factor of not having to thaw things. So that's always the first option that most brand retailers are going for, and so a lot of times they're actually thawing, you know, frozen product as, you know, and selling it as fresh, and refreezing. And that process, either the age of time or the thawing and refreezing process, just elevates the bacterial load in that product and that meat, whether it's a whole muscle meat or ground meat. Ground meats are especially notorious for that process. And so it's just a terrible system, honestly, for someone who's struggling with histamine sensitivities. So we're extremely opposite of that. We're trying to harvest and cut and package and freeze as quickly as possible, and then we manage that cold chain. It stays frozen all the way until basically you're ready to eat it. You're thawing it in time to eat it. And so I think that's the differentiator that gives us such a separator, I guess, and why people are doing so well, I guess, with our products, is the intentionality behind it. But it's not mainstream. It's not what you typically see. And there's a lot of other aspects or elements that also differentiate us aside from the processing, that will play a role, I guess, in the product. And this is where it comes to claims and things like that. So grain-fed meat versus grass-fed meat. The term grass-fed is about the slimiest word in the food industry. Grass-fed simply means that it ate grass at some point in its life. It's not excluding grain by any means. Grain, and I always want to be careful, like, to not throw mud here or anything like that, but grain, just like scientifically, grain changes the pH in meat, and it changes the fat from a good fat to a bad fat, right? So higher in CLA and omega-3s is the grass-fed, grass-finished version. So they're trying to play off of that and just say grass-fed, trying to get the upsell side of the grass-fed industry, and consumers, don't recognize that in order to be able to be grass-fed and grass-finished and have that on the label where it says 100% grass-fed or 100% grass-finished, 100% grass-fed and finished, that kind of terminology, it has to say 100% in order for it to qualify the fact that it's never eaten grain in its life. If it hasn't, naturally, from the production standpoint, you're incentivized to feed that animal grain and get it to weight as quickly as possible, because our food industry isn't built on nutritional value, it's built on volume. So if that animal is twice as big, your check is twice as big. It doesn't matter that it was slightly less healthy, right? So you see that in fruits and vegetables and things like that, where the nutritional value of those products has decreased substantially over the last 50 years, to where it's almost not even worth eating the product for what it was meant for, or what the value was in the beginning of tomatoes and oranges and things like that, because of the speed at which they're trying to get this stuff to market to sell more volume. So the same is in the meat industry, and it's really everywhere. And so you have to find someone that's trustworthy, that's transparent, and that's also doing the right things. Some people are trustworthy and transparent, but it's not meeting the objectives of what you might be looking for and what you're needing, especially in the most critical time of a health crisis. And that's, going full circle back to what my parents were so passionate about, is feeding people well at the extremes, right? So if it's good for the extremes of an Olympic athlete or a bodybuilder or what have you, to someone who's critically ill, it's good for everyone in between, right? So we just see the separators at those ends of the extreme, to really, because there's no margin there, right? So if the bodybuilder is going to eat the wrong food, they're gonna notice it in hours. If someone who's dealing with low histamine eats the wrong food, they're gonna notice it in seconds or minutes. And so that's really we can't cheat our body, right? Our body tells us what's good and what's not. And so making that correlation, I think, is especially critical, and it's good feedback for us as a company to say, does this work? Does this, does your body approve of this, right? And that's our gauge, as whether or not our processes are good. And so anyway, I guess I'm rambling here just a little bit, but it's such a big, deep topic. I think as it goes back to field harvest and some of those harvest processes too, we've had some interesting over the years, interesting feedback that makes us question what we thought we knew. There was one instance where there was a customer buying another bison brand, actually, a product that they did, that they were trying and they were having some success with, and then they tried one of our products and they gave an amazing review on our top sirloin steaks, and they just said, oh, because it's low histamine and all this sort of thing. But what the product that they were actually buying was a 21-day aged steak, and it's like, wait a minute, that's exact opposite of what we thought we knew. What is the difference? And it was actually a very, very close direct competitor of how we were processing our products. The only difference was that ours was field harvested and theirs was not. And so it comes back to this question of like, what role does that harvest or stress right at harvest play in our own body's ability to respond to, cortisol that's directly injected into the bloodstream and the muscle tissues of that animal right at harvest. And so that's your snapshot, right? That animal is frozen in time at a peak stress period. And our bodies, when our margin is extremely limited, we don't have the capacity to be able to handle additional stress hormones, such as cortisol. And so there's a real correlation there. This is all anecdotal, I guess, information, but it definitely checks out logically as to why there could be some significant correlation to stress at harvest and the resulting nutritional value or the acceptability to our bodies past that point.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of our community members really struggle with eating, and for, like we've been talking about, a variety of reasons that meat can increase and can become really high histamine. So it's really your practices around the animal health, the processing, the flash freezing, the field harvest. So like everything from pasture to freezer that helps preserve the quality of the meat and then really minimize that histamine. And I see Ronnie's asking, is it grass-fed, organic? Obviously, it's even more than that. And he's asking what your name is so that they can also try this. So I just want to throw up a slide real quick because you guys are having a flash sale for our community. And this is Sean and Courtney are from Northstar Bison, Ronnie, and you can order it at mastcell360.com/Northstar Bison is our pretty link, so to say. If you use Mast Cell 360, you can get, I believe it is 15% off, and we'll drop that into the comments as well for you guys. And then Kimberly, can you just kind of discuss how many of our client and community members are really able to tolerate like the low histamine meat when they aren't able to tolerate grocery store meat?
Yeah, well, absolutely, right. So there's just that huge difference that Sean was talking about between beginning to end. But yeah, in clinic, I see it where clients are like, I can't eat red meat. I can't eat even ground meats, right? Or even the chicken. I know we're not talking about chicken right now, but yeah, the chicken taking 3 weeks versus 1 week to freezer, right? And stopping that histamine growth process. So I do see it with clients where they're just able to onboard some foods that they really missed and that they really need for the healing piece.
Yeah. And go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to say, I didn't want to exclude, bison is our flagship species, and of course we touched on elk, but really, I mean, chicken has become for us such a huge product that we never anticipated. There's chicken everywhere. How could you get different chicken, so to speak? But really, the way that these animals are raised, the diet that they're on, you set our chicken, next to another conventionally raised chicken, and it is absolutely not even the same product. And so I don't want to, gloss over, I guess. You can share some of that. But all the other species that we have are the same filter. It's the Northstar filter, so to speak. But it's significant too.
Yeah, I was gonna say chicken is definitely one of the most popular low histamine proteins we have. And like you said, you think it's just chicken, but we do like a corn and soy free poultry. And again, going back to like how it's raised, I think, and what it's fed and what it's given makes such a difference. I think that's why ours stands apart. And lamb too, I feel like is another really good low histamine option that people seem to do really well with. Very semi-seasonal for that one. We'll get more in the fall. That's definitely like harvest time. But those are two that, yeah, I think maybe people don't think of when they think of Northstar Bison, but that, yeah, do really well with low histamine.
Yeah. Everyone there's no one diet for everyone, right? So the diet piece is like, I think one of the hardest pieces we do with clients. Like we try to help them figure out, because it is so individualized, but just giving them more options. Sherry's saying she can't eat anything with hooves because she's alpha gal. What can she do? So maybe the chicken is an option for her that is also low histamine. But I also want to throw it over to Kimberly again real quick to kind of go through and give our audience today some tips on, if you're still struggling with meat, it's a sign that digestion needs some support. It can help with motility, which can help open up those detox pathways that can actually remove the things that are keeping us stuck from the body. So I'm going to bring up some slides for her real quick here.
So yeah. So you might have low histamine meat and, not be able to digest. So, it's only what we're getting is only what we were able to tolerate, onboard, eat, digest, transport, get into our cells. So, so the digestion piece is huge, right? So if you have low stomach acid or you're low on pancreatic enzymes, things like that, it can make it really hard to break down meat. So, thinking about specifically like a product like HCL, things like that can help break down that protein to the amino acids we were talking about before. Obviously starting with a clean, properly raised animal, like we're talking about those kinds of proteins, but thinking about some supportive supplements, right? Like an HCL, like a holozyme is your pancreatic enzymes, or something, a DAO such as Histamine is another good one too, just to bring down, because just the act of eating creates a little bit of histamine, and histamine's not necessarily bad, but it's sometimes just can be just our sensitivity, and there's just too much of it.
Yeah.
Also, I'd like to add, also when we eat, slowing down to eat, right? We're in America, and we're always eating on the go and things like that. So taking the time to maybe put your fork down between bites too. So think about that as well, because that just helps signal the body to make all the enzymes that we need. But yeah, I'm starting to talk about some of these. So the holozyme, if we need some digestive support in terms of pancreatic enzymes, can really help break down. What I see it as is, the more we can have the food breaking down, if we have some gut issues like SIBO, the less that we're feeding that further down into the small intestine. HCL guard is really great in the gut for breaking down those proteins. We tend to get low, especially as we age, but with chronic illness. Tributyrin X is another one, can really help that terrain piece. So I see it as a biome builder, or really helps rebuild that piece. And then DAO can be a huge game changer for so many people. Just trying to, because what is DAO? DAO breaks down histamine. So the more that we can, sometimes our gut is off, right, with mast cell, and we're not making enough of those brush border enzymes like DAO. So adding a little bit of that to your proteins and to your meat can help you tolerate things better too.
Yeah. So I think one of the most important things, like obviously getting the support you need to help digest the protein, but starting with the quality protein. So that's why we have Sean and Courtney here today. Is there anything else that you guys would like to share about your products, or what you've learned from working with our community over the past few years to kind of give people that peace of mind? I'm going to throw Lisa's question up here while other people think, because we're going to go into our live Q&A next if people still have some questions. But Lisa's saying that she truly believes in the stress of animals affecting us. Her friends think she's cuckoo, but she feels the difference in her body. And you talked a little bit about this in the beginning of today's show. So just want to give you guys that chance to really show them that you guys take that kind of care with your animals.
Yeah, I think, whether or not it's scientifically able to be proven, I think we can all agree that it doesn't increase the value of the experience for that animal, or the experience of the consumer. If anyone could avoid it, they would, right? And this is our way of avoiding it. And so whether or not it's debatable, that it actually does. I think it actually does, because I think you can, happy cows, happy meat kind of a concept, but I think there's absolutely something to our body's ability to detect that kind of stuff, right? It is so in tune and so what do you want to say? Just like receptive, I guess, to anything that it can possibly it can pick up or key in on. I don't know how to say that, from the colors. I mean, there's a lot of rabbit holes, I guess, you could go down that would help corroborate that kind of information that are far less. What do you want to say? Far less logically concrete of a stance that would be. So sorry if I'm stumbling on this one, but it's it's hard to describe. It's hard to put into words, but I think there's definitely something to it. And there's definitely corroborating evidence that we have, or anecdotal evidence talking about this product versus that product, and someone just having a reaction to this product and not to this product, and this one violated some of the rules or laws of histamine, and the only difference being the fact that it was a field harvest, a zero stress field harvest is that's pretty powerful. So, but yeah, I would say, not to I guess maybe a shameless plug, but take advantage of the sale today. It's 15% off, is greater than anything we do outside of something like this. We, our biggest sale of the year, like a Black Friday sale, would be 10% off. So this is a real opportunity. Don't miss it. And I say that because it's true, and we want people to experience and stock up. If you're already a customer, that's amazing. Stock up now before the code expires, because it's a limited opportunity. But thank you guys so much. I think one thing that we appreciate, we wouldn't be here, we wouldn't know what we know if it wasn't for the low histamine community. This conversation started 10-15 years ago because of skin-to-skin relationships, and this is one reason why we're so passionate about being consumer driven. No matter what direction the market goes, as far as if direct to consumer is popular or not, or lucrative or not, or successful or not, we see it so much as a connectivity to the people who are consuming the products that we are producing. And if there is not a satisfactory relationship there, right, a win-win relationship where we're getting feedback and truly honestly providing products that serve people well, then what are we doing here? We want to serve in ways that are meaningful and impactful, and the way that we do that is through conversations. I mean, that's why I invited Courtney onto this, because she is, and the team is, often I'm not on the phone as much as I used to be, but we have a team here that is one-on-one, basically consultative in a way about our products and how we can find that right product. And so we're not health coaches per se, but we're real people that do care, and we understand a little bit of what you're going through. And this is the relationship with Mast Cell at 360 that is so vital and valuable. You guys understand what is going on at a much deeper level than we do, but we understand our products and our processes really intimately, and we can literally go into the processing plant and speak with the person that cut that steak, or what have you. Like, we just have a really small team. We're clean freaks. We test often everything, looking for bacterial load and things like that, and do certificates of analysis on products. And so we're really looking for ways to improve and ways to make a really quality, clean product. I don't know if anybody on here has heard of the whole boar's head scare that happened in some processing plants up east, where they had some sanitation issues and a bunch of people died because of food poisoning. And so that's a scary thing. That's an extreme case, but there's all varying degrees of processing, I guess, that happens, and we're on the scale of wanting to be hold ourselves to extremely high standard. And so that's definitely not us, and we don't ever want to, be in that position for sure. And so we try really, really, really hard to study our processes all the time and improve and have feedback from this community that tells us whether we're hitting the nail or not.
Yeah, one thing I like to always say is I feel like we're big enough to serve you and be able to help and get people the products they need, but we're small enough to make like little moves here and there and changes based on customer feedback. And it's so cool because we're so small, we can tell you like the people's first name all the way from the ranch with the live animal all the way to the freezer, the person shipping it out. I could name you, 6 names of people that are dealing with your product. And so we are small, but I feel like in a unique way, but still big enough to be able to do things and work with Mast Cell. You guys are a pretty big deal. And so it's really unique and really cool, something we're really proud of.
Yeah, well, we're happy you guys are here. I have some questions coming in that I'll throw up right now, see if we can get through them for our audience. All right, Kate is asking, can bison cuts be cooked in an Instant Pot? She's had great success with chicken and pork, and this is a great tool for cooking meat, like I'm guessing she's asking from frozen. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe do you guys have any resources on like recipes or suggestions on how to cook meat? I know like people are always asking us like, do you have a cookbook? So it's, it's kind of on our list of things to do.
Yeah, we just revamped our recipe page, and you can definitely cook bison frozen in an Instant Pot. That's almost always the question we ask people that are low histamine. Well, how do I cook this? Always my first thing is, do you have an Instant Pot? Because that seems to be the best, easiest way to cook it from frozen. So there is a recipe page that we do have like a link for Instant Pot recipes. And because we have so many people that it works so well with, we are still all the time like trying to revamp that. And so we'll put more and more on there. But yeah, bison can be cooked really easily in an Instant Pot. That's a great tool.
Thank you. Kim, I think this one's for you. When we were talking about breakfast, Patty's wondering if cottage cheese is not a good idea for MCAS. So again, totally individualized on, can you handle dairy and things? But
yeah, it kind of depends on if you can handle dairy, right? So if you can handle dairy, great. And then just be careful because some cottage cheese, they add probiotics. And I've run into that before where my partner picked up for me and got the good brand, which looks like a good brand, right? But it had probiotics in it and it can flare mast cell with the histamine piece. So just careful there.
Lisa's asking, do you have any suggestions for SIBO? She's eating too much beef can create more methane in the gut if you have SIBO due to methane.
Yeah, I mean, HCl, right? So breaking that down further so it's not feeding the SIBO piece, the pancreatic enzymes like a whole enzyme to breaking that down further. And then it sounds like it's a motility thing, right? Where it might be growing more methane because it's sitting there, right? But that will happen with almost any food. If it's not moving through, which SIBO is usually a lot slower gut process going on, just things are going to grow histamine and other things as it's breaking down there and sort of festering a little bit. So working on that motility piece, it sounds like it would be big.
Okay. Michelle's asking if Northstar can reiterate the name of the bacon mentioned earlier that's low histamine and not smoked.
Yeah, it's you can search it and find it under side pork.
Side pork.
DE. Yep.
And then Anne is asking, how is it packaged? Are steaks packaged individually, and is ground bison 1 pound?
Yep. Yeah. So everything pretty much is packed individually. It's all vacuum sealed. The ground bison is 1 pound. We've even made changes more recently to like lower, like chicken breast. We used to have 2 per pack. We moved it to 1 per pack just because it seemed to work better for low histamine. So yeah, there's a lot of options that are individually packaged or smaller sizes, 8 ounce, 4 ounce even.
Yeah, our sirloin tip medallions, that's one of our more recent development products. We've specifically made those a 4 ounce portion, individually packaged. So you can literally just take it from the freezer, take it out of the package, throw it in an Instant Pot or an air fryer or something like that. Cook it, from frozen if you don't have any leftovers or waste. So the full value of your dollar is there for every meal. So
yeah, I should add on that I have some clients who are like, they need to eat low histamine, but their family doesn't. So their family's eating other cuts or other meat from the grocery store, and they're for a way for them to afford, so they're buying like the elk and the bison and things like that, and their family is jealous of them. They're like, oh my gosh, it looks so much better, can I have some of that? So it's just kind of, they're like, I don't know if I want to share it, but yeah. Yeah.
We obviously, I mean, the meat is not cheap, especially the way that we raise protein. Like, people think, oh my gosh, your prices are a lot more than the grocery store. Why? You guys must be rich or something. And it's just, it's what it costs. It's what it takes. Nobody is making record incomes or anything like that around here, but we're extremely passionate. We wouldn't have it any other way, but we try to be extremely, what do you want to say, value conscious, I guess, to the consumer, and make sure that we're portioning, that there is no waste, right? If you're going to throw away 2 ounces because you couldn't eat the whole thing and you can't consume leftovers, like, that's a problem that we're wanting to fix. And so that's where, like, the portion sizing, we're trying to tailor that to be able to meet people's needs and maximize their budget too. So
yeah, I love that.
I was gonna say,
yeah, go ahead.
I agree, Kim. I was going to say, it's like, for our community, it's either like they don't want the waste and they have to cook it. Like, they can't even eat the frozen leftovers. They may be so sensitive. But also, like, just to reiterate for people who are like, okay, how do I actually handle eating meat and cooking meat when it makes me fatigue? Because a lot of our audience is dealing with fatigue. It's like maybe cooking a couple servings in the Instant Pot from frozen and then refreezing what you aren't. So you're cooking once, but you have like 2 or 3 meals from it. So just to give people just some more ideas to play around with your tolerance window a little bit. Do you have anything to add, Kimberly?
No, that's and I love the 4 ounce size, right? That's pretty standard size.
Yeah.
Or we have people who are one person, right? So buying a huge family pack is just feels like adding histamine to them, right? Versus it's already packaged as one. That's a great idea.
I'm just going to throw this up here real quick. Kay is asking, what was the pancreatic enzyme we discussed? I think I can throw the slide up. Here we go. The holozyme.
It's the holozyme one, the one in the middle from Healthy Gut Company, is a great pancreatic enzyme.
And you can find it on our web store, mastcell360.com/store-healthy gut. And we can drop that in the comments for you as well. Let's see, any last questions come in? Lisa's asking, so is motility as simple as moving the body, or there are additional supplements? So this is highly, highly individual. Obviously, moving the body is a great tool. Hydration is a great tool. Supplements to help break that down can be a great tool. This is where a strategy session with one of our health coaches could be really helpful for you to understand, like, why are you having this low motility in the first place. So I'll just throw that up real quick. If you're interested in working with Mast Cell 360 on the diet piece, like I said, this is one of the hardest pieces to kind of get right for you. So if you're not doing it with some guidance and help, it can feel really complicated and overwhelming. But just starting with like a general low histamine diet can be great. We have a whole blog on a low histamine food list, which is one of the most comprehensive food lists you'll find on the internet. But if you want that more individualized support, we have 2 tiers. The foundational, which is a one-time strategy session. I say one time, but you can actually do a couple of them. And then for long-term ongoing support, that would be our advanced track, which gets you support with a health coach and a lead practitioner. Both of them are open to our international community, which is relatively new in the past few months. And we also do have an emotional support track as well. So those of you who are really, just a reminder that we change biochemically with stress, right? So we're animals. It's no different for the animals that we're eating as well, and ingesting and consuming that stress can affect us. So yeah, we all need to work on our nervous systems, and it's great for the animals who don't have that stress at the end of their life. So Courtney and Sean, thank you so much for being here with us today. Do you have any last words for our audience?
Thank you, I guess. I mean, thank you to you guys. Thank you for what you are doing. This is something that's very complex and very daunting and challenging. And you hear, I mean, I'm speaking for Courtney here just a little bit, but I've had plenty of my journey, I guess, on this path was, I'm 38 years old, I guess, and so 30 of my 38 years has been in the business, and went through, basically started out in sanitation and on the ranch, of course, prior to that, and all the way up through, but did a lot of customer service years and shipping. And my sister and I, my parents retired here in 21, so the last 4 years my sister and I have kind of been at the helm. So I'm blessed in customer service, but through the years of customer service and increasingly now we're in our sales and marketing meeting every week, we're talking about these types of things because it's challenging, and you can't help but want to help, right? And so any way that we can do that, we're interested in, for sure. And whether it's, like I said, the consultative aspect, we're especially diligent in staffing the office for time for a real person to be able to talk to and not have to jump off the phone quick for the next, because we're thin staffed. So anyway, just wanted to offer that. Appreciative to you guys, but also the community of Mast Cell. It's definitely shaping a lot of the products that we develop and things like that to be able to meet needs for people, and it helps us feel purposeful.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. Kimberly, do you have any last words?
I just say thank you to Sean and Courtney for all you get, like just your passion and your dedication to a quality product. It's inspiring. So thank you for that. And then just to have that option for clients, right? To be like, you can have some red meat, you can have a low histamine source of chicken. It doesn't have to be what was factory farmed and all that. And just to have that, because protein and amino acids are a huge, huge part of healing.
Yeah. All right. It was great to have you guys on with us. We'll see everyone else next time.
Great day.
Have a great week.